For context, I didn't grow up in a good area. I won't give location for privacy, but I live in a fairly large city. At the time I was around 10 or 11. This was overall not a good area, lots of gang activity, drug use, and that kind of thing. One of those neighborhoods with the jacked up sidewalks and shopping carts strewn everywhere. This was a park a couple of blocks away from my house, and I decided to go on a run and spend some time there on my own. I don't know why I was allowed to leave on my own, knowing the area. It was still light out when I jogged down there, but it started getting dark when I actually reached the park. It was around dusk. The layout of the park was a big rectangle basically. It faced out long ways, so the shorter side was where the gate was. It's hard to explain, so I'll try to attach a picture to show y'all what it looked like. There was a set of swings at the very front, and I sat down to hang out there for a bit. At the time I didn't have a phone with service, I just had music downloaded to listen to. I was sitting with my earbuds in, and I got this really awful feeling. It felt like a tingling on my back, and I knew something was up. I took one earbud out and kept swinging, but I couldn't shake that feeling. Finally, I turned around to check behind me. There was an alleyway leading into the park that curved so you could only see part of the way down. It was all white gravel. Down the alley was a dumpster. There was a figure on the ground with a ton of red stuff around him, which I know now was blood, and another guy standing walking towards me fast. The alley was across the playground about 40 feet away maybe. As soon as I saw the man approaching me, I dipped the fuck out of there. He had something in his hand that I couldn't see, but he was holding it like a knife or a pair of scissors. I sprinted a couple of blocks back to my house and got in through the back to make sure no one saw me. I didn't tell my dad until years later, and he fully believed me. That area was bad news, and I'm amazed something bad didn't happen to me with how much I was let out alone.
So this happened in 2013. This kid named Ricky moved in next door to me when he was around 12. And for lack of a better term, this kid was pretty much a pussy. I remember one time he fell on his skateboard and didn't land hard at all and was crying his little heart out in my driveway when he was like 16. So fast forward to when this kid is like 18. By then I'm selling coke and molly pretty heavily and he's one of my best customers. By now he's hanging out with some pretty shady people, which my parents obviously aren't fans of. My parents also didn't know I was ever selling anything because I was pretty good at keeping it under wraps. Ricky was clearly a follower. He went from the skater/emo type to some wannabe thug, which he just wasn't built for. So my parents go to the Outer Banks, North Carolina every year for 2 weeks and ask if I'll come stay at the house while they are gone, which I was excited about because their house is much better than the shitty little one-bedroom apartment I had at the time. So everything was going fine at the house. I had my on and off again girlfriend over all the time and there was quite a bit of drugs and alcohol going on. I was far from a saint back then. I'll never forget it. It was a Thursday night. My girl had left a few hours ago. I should say earlier that day, Ricky had seen me out in front of my parents' house and had asked for a front. I told him no, considering I never fronted anyone and in all honesty had been using too much of my own shit so I couldn't afford to. He didn't like that very much and we got in an argument and I pretty much punked him in front of all of his little friends. So by now it's like 2 in the morning and I'm obviously nowhere near tired because of all the coke and molly. I'm sitting in the dark watching Netflix in this dim side living room my parents had in the downstairs, which has a window going outside which I had open. I had paused the TV and was on my phone texting and on Facebook when I heard something. It's the screen of my window slowly being slid up. I know the sound. I had snuck in and out of this house numerous times growing up, so I slowly get up and watch the window. I clearly see the screen moving very slowly up through the curtains. So I walk up to the window, and as soon as I cove the curtain, at least 3 to 4 people scatter. I run out front, but they're booking it down the street. I knew it was that Ricky kid and his friends. I didn't see them, but I knew it was those shitheads. I didn't call the cops or nothing because I wasn't exactly living on the right side of the law. So I just go back in and lock everything up and the rest of the week goes smooth. I never tell my parents about it, and I also never seen Ricky again. Called him a few times, which he never answered, which was all the more reason to know it was him, and he knew that I knew. So a month goes by and I'm watching the news and Ricky is on it for murder, which blows my mind. Him and his 3 friends went out of town, broke into some old couple's home, beat them, and tied them up, then stabbed them. Then they burnt the house down after robbing it. They all ended up telling on each other and got sentenced to 35 years for testifying against his co-defendants. Makes me wonder if I was asleep when they got in, what could have happened. So today has been a particularly slow day at work, and I've been killing time reading these stories. Maybe enough time has passed and I can finally share mine. I had this friend who was really into the occult. Unfortunately, I was the one that got him turned onto it. We had a mutual appreciation of the paranormal and all things weird, so I thought the subject would interest him. He started going deep into the subject to the point where he wouldn't talk about anything else.
He would actually interrupt the conversation and force the subject back to the occult matters. Rude, but sometimes people go through phases where their interest is all they want to talk about. It was a mostly forgivable offense. I think I should mention that this particular friend didn't have a very large friend circle. His depression and introverted nature kept him inside a lot. He didn't have the best of luck in relationships with women. His world was kind of small, and I did enjoy hanging out with him, so I did my best to be a good friend. I didn't want to just brush him off because he was acting a little weirder than normal. Honestly, for the longest time, he was a totally normal guy. We chat and play games together on the PlayStation. Sometimes we'd go see movies with my boyfriend accompanying us. We all hung out at the park and we went swimming. Overall, we had a good time hanging out. Things started to go downhill when he started to smoke DMT. Personally, I think psychedelics are amazing tools that can offer insight into your life, but they should be treated with respect. My friend got to the point where he was making it himself, apparently a pretty easy thing to do after a meager amount of research, and he was smoking it daily, multiple times a day. For those of you who aren't familiar with the substance, when you smoke it, you get transported to a different world, an entirely new plane of existence. Your body and yourself don't exist anymore. You're just exploring this alternate reality dreamscape. My personal experience with it led me to seeing a dragon once in this kaleidoscope of a cornucopia. People see all kinds of different things there. Imagine what that does to a person when they're smoking it 30 plus times in a day. He started telling me things like he was the reincarnated Osiris. He said he was seeing Egyptian hieroglyphs all over the place in waking life. Apparently, he had hour-long conversations with entities in his bedroom even when he wasn't smoking DMT. Of course, I was very alarmed to hear all of this, and I told him he needed to take a serious break. No drugs at all for a few months so he can get a solid footing in reality again. At this point, I was still hanging out with him because he obviously needed some help. And like I said before, he didn't have a lot of friends that could give him that. He was also the black sheep of the family, so I know he wasn't getting any kind of support from them. He was really close to a sister, and I did reach out to her on Facebook to express my concerns. I pushed her to talk him into getting some psychiatric help, because he was slipping past the point of no return. I'm not really sure if she took my messages seriously since we didn't really know each other. Plus, she is at least 6 years younger than us and possibly didn't grasp how serious the situation was becoming. In any case, I'll jump forward now to the part where things start to get really creepy. My boyfriend had made arrangements to hang out with our friend at the park. I didn't really want to go because I felt like I needed a break from him and his nonsensical ranting. I just couldn't deal with it on that particular day. My boyfriend said it wasn't all that bad and we went anyway. We get to the park and he is his usual self, ranting about Egypt and made-up gods that he only knew the truth about, etc. He also had this large hunting knife that he kept fiddling with the whole time we were on a walk. He told us that he had been using it in ceremonial magic and that it helped him to banish the negative thoughts. It made me extremely uneasy. He would do this thing where he would take the knife and make stabbing motions near his heart or head, like he was mock stabbing himself, all while holding a conversation with me and my boyfriend. I think we were both really on edge and didn't know what to say or do about it. I tried to distract him from doing it by bringing up other subjects that might interest him, but he kept on with his ritual. Keep in mind we were walking on a trail, so it wasn't like we could just say goodbye then and there. We had to walk back to our car and drop him off at his car. My boyfriend had the bright idea that we should get some lunch after our walk, even though I was doing my best to give him a look that said, "No, you crazy fuck. Why do you think I want to spend any more time with this nut?" But it must not have been very effective, or my boyfriend was ignoring it. Not sure, either way we ended up getting in the car to go get lunch. In the car I was driving, my boyfriend was in the passenger seat, and our weirdo friend was in the back. As we're heading through a busy part of town where all the shopping centers and restaurants are, I hear the distinctive sound of a belt buckle coming undone. Then I hear the worst sound imaginable. I peeked back out of the corner of my eye and my suspicions were confirmed. This crazy fucker was full on jacking off in our back seat. I mean, pants all the way down, bare ass on the seat, beating it so hard it was like he wanted to rip it off. Instantly I felt sick to my stomach and all the nervous energy I had throughout the day popped up into my head. I was trying not to shake and trying to ignore it and drive through heavy traffic. I kind of had a freeze response, I guess. The whole time I kept thinking about that huge ass knife he had in his pocket, and obviously he was completely off his rocker now. I was afraid to say anything or confront him because I didn't know how he was going to react. This part is nuts, but my boyfriend didn't fucking seem to notice, and the whole time he kept rambling on about God knows what. I couldn't listen because my thoughts were 100% focused on driving and trying to act like I didn't know what was going on in my back seat. We get to the restaurant and my boyfriend runs inside to grab the food. I'm left alone in the car with our friend, and I try to act like I'm browsing on my phone, when really I'm watching and listening as hard as I can. We don't talk. My boyfriend gets back and I complain that I'm tired. It's been a long day, let's drop him off, etc. So I drive us back to our friend's car. and he doesn't get out of our vehicle. He just sits there. I have to get a little bit rude and ask him to please get out and go home. He gets out of our car and walks over to his passenger side. I start getting really scared and suspected the worst. He pulled a gun out of some kind of bag that he had on the seat, and he just walks over to our car with it. I don't know why the fuck I did this, but I was so pissed off that I just got out of my car and walked right up to him. I was maybe 3 feet away and I could see he had a loaded 9mm handgun. I kept asking him over and over, "What are you doing?" Because apparently that's all my brain could think to do. I told him to get in his car and go home. He never said anything during this whole time, just kind of cried and had this wild look in his eye. For whatever reason, he got back into his car and drove off. I told my boyfriend obviously we are never hanging out with him again and that I don't even want to talk to him anymore. No contact, nothing. A few months pass and he occasionally messages me through the PlayStation or texts my phone. He says a lot of random stuff and I just ignore it. It turns out he moved down to Tennessee near Nashville. He had a roommate and I think his girlfriend lived there. I'm not really sure about the situation. I think maybe he's turning his life around and getting a fresh start down there. I think it's the best to cut all contact and let him regroup. I'm not interested in any kind of friendship with him and I know he needed help beyond what I could ever offer. Again, I reached out to his sister and let her know that he had a gun. She managed to get it from him somehow, but it did little good in the end. I get a call around 11 p.m. one night that wakes me up. It's a man claiming he's a detective down in Gallatin, Tennessee, and my heart skips a beat. I start sweating and immediately ask what happened. Apparently, my former friend stabbed someone to death on Halloween Day. I don't know all the details, and the articles about it are kind of sparse. The whole thing is really surreal, and I'm just left feeling like I'm lucky that I didn't get shot last summer. This whole thing turned out to be way longer than I meant it to be, but that's the story. I'm still feeling kind of creeped out by the whole ordeal, and I'm kind of feeling sick after writing all of this. I moved away for college. I just wanted a more liberal setting. Chalk it up as youthful idolism. So I moved to the Northeast to go to a school. I would come back every holiday and summer to my folks' place and catch up with friends. You know, the whole college summer thing. So my college was very uneventful. I wasn't much of a school spirit kind of guy. I just wanted to get it over with so I could go back home. Because after 3 years of school, the youthful idolism gave way to reality. So one summer night we were at a local college bar, and I meet up with a girl I've known since like elementary school. We go out for drinks and she just kept talking about this one guy who would always hit on her at the bar. So me, a 6-foot guy, built fairly well, would be on the lookout for creeps. And that's when I saw him. He was a white male, bald, not at all intimidating looking, just an average looking guy. He looked older than us, but I just chalked it up to the bald head. The thing that did creep me out was his gaze. It was like he was looking at you, but through you. He made small talk with her. She introduced me and he went on his way. She turns and looks at me and says, "That's the creep." I leave it alone and we go on about our night. Then 2 months later, that's when I get the call. The guy was no ordinary guy at all. He was arrested for murder and the details of the murder were so horrific it made me literally uneasy. It's been years since then and I do wonder about that day. I think about the girl who lost her life in such a tragic way and the soulless gaze of the man who did such a horrible act. I have a family of my own now and I couldn't imagine getting that call. It's something that I think about every time my wife or daughter leaves the house.